Hey yo guys, I'm back here to give you my review of UFC 100, which took place on Saturday night from the Mandalay Bay Event Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. And for a show that the UFC hyped up as being, the biggest show that they've done in all time, I would say they came through on a lot of that. The hype that went into, both the UFC heavyweight title fight actually delivered, towards the end. I would say the crowd was into it. Maybe the fight didn't live up to what you thought it would be, but, hell, this is MMA. Things change a lot more so than you think they would. But yeah, let's run through the card here. I've seen about every undercard fight. It's the exception of TJ Grant and Dong Hyun Kim. But other than that, I have seen everything, so let's first review. We started the night out with the first undercard fight, which was Matt Grease versus Shannon Googherty. Really, this was a quick fight. Grease shot in for a takedown. Googherty stopped, got him in a guillotine, and that was it, basically. He had an interesting arm in guillotine choke, and Joe Rogan called it like a no-arm guillotine. And that was about it. Googherty won the match. I mean, he basically won it the way I thought he would, with the fact that I said in my predictions that, Grease would probably win because he's a better wrestler, but he had to be aware of Googherty's submissions because he's a really strong submission fighter. And he got caught in a guillotine, and that was it. Then we went to the next fight. It was CB Dollaway versus Tom Lawler. For those of you who haven't seen it, you absolutely must go out of your way and try and find Tom Lawler's entrance. This was one of the most entertaining entrances I think the UFC has ever done, especially for this card, because Akiyama's entrance I thought was pretty the same as, it would be in Dream, but it just didn't have that feel to it as it normally would. But Tom Lawler definitely had the best entrance on this show. I mean, he came out with a dog leash and had Seth Petrozelli, who was one in his corner, had like a chew toy in his mouth, and they had him walking him out because, CB Dollaway's nickname's the Doberman. So I thought that was awesome. This was another quick fight. Basically, Dollaway shot in, Lawler with the guillotine, and that was it. He actually guillotined him. He choked him out cold, actually, which was, pretty scary for a while, but at least, Tom Lawler's like, hey, ref, hey, Eves, he's out. Eve Levine was the referee. He's out. So they got that over with. Tom Lawler looked pretty impressive for his 185-pound debut. Now then again, that's just, a simple mistake of Dollaway for giving his neck up on a takedown. We should be more aware of that. But then again, you can't knock Tom Lawler. Then the next fight was the Kim Grant fight, and like I said, I didn't see that one. Next fight was Johnny Bones Jones versus Irish Jake O'Brien. For those of you who remember seeing Bones Jones versus Stephan Bonnar, he was throwing these incredible suplexes and these weird, goofy kicks. He threw some nice head kicks in this fight, but he really respected Jake O'Brien, his ability as a strong wrestler, and the fact that he's a much bigger built guy than Stephan Bonnar. So you have to, you got to give, some respect to O'Brien there, that which he did. Really the first round was uneventful. It was just Jones, coming forward, throwing some kicks. That was basically the whole first round. The second round, though, Bones Jones came out, threw a couple more kicks, and he went and shot in for a takedown. O'Brien was looking to stuff the takedown, but as Bones Jones went in, he stopped, he faked him out, and did a spinning back elbow. This rocked O'Brien, and then Bones Jones just put him away. He put him away with, I believe, with another guillotine. So he got him out there. It was the night of the guillotine on the undercard, really. So that was just, pretty incredible. Johnny Bones Jones still looks really good. Comparing this to the Stephan Bonnar fight, it wasn't as nice looking, but then again, like I said, it was mainly because he respected Irish Jake O'Brien and the fact that he's actually a really good wrestler, and he's a much bigger, bulkier guy than Stephan Bonnar. And then the last undercard fight was, speaking of Stephan Bonnar versus the former UFC heavyweight champion Mark the Hammer Coleman. This fight was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I thought, Bonnar would probably push Coleman out till he ran out of gas and then either finish him or just go off to the decision. Well, that really didn't happen here. as, Bonnar came out. He came out actually in a weird, like, old school Karate Kid stance, which actually would have been better to his benefit, because it would have probably, been less likely that Coleman could have got a takedown. But he came out, he won the first round definitely, as, Coleman got a takedown, but, Bonnar was able to stay alive and actually, make sure Coleman really didn't do anything with it. He was able to do more work on the ground to win the first round, in my opinion. Second round, it was Coleman, taking Bonnar down and delivering some nasty elbows. And, cutting Bonnar open pretty bad. I mean, he had a nice gash on the side of his head. It looked real mean. And he just, controlled, he was on top. He had mount, like, very reminiscent of, the early days of the UFC when, the man won the first, his tournament at UFC 10. And then in the third round, it was much of the same there, where, he took his back and, did more damage, threw more elbows, cut Bonnar open again. Mark Coleman, like I said in my predictions, I wasn't sure how the man's cardio was. Well, the man had cardio. He looked incredibly impressive, and I think that had this Coleman shown up against Mauricio Shogun Hua, he probably would have beaten him, and that's just saying something, because Shogun really didn't have good cardio in that fight either. Still, this was actually a really impressive fight. Had Alan Belcher and Yoshihiro Akiyama not been on this card, it probably would have been the best fight of the night. I mean, that's just what I'm going to say there. Coleman won the fight, in my opinion, 29-28, and all the judges scored it 29-28. It's a shame they didn't have time to interview Coleman, as they had to prepare everything for the live show. The crowd was really into it. The crowd actually started to fill in at this point, as this was the last preliminary fight. So I thought this was a really impressive performance, and Coleman showed that he had the heart of a warrior. Don't know what they're going to do with Stephan Bonnar here. I mean, he did lose to a guy that's just 44 years old now. They won't cut him. I mean, I made the statement that it's a lose-release town, mainly more so for Coleman. I still don't think they're going to... There's the possibility they could cut Bonnar, but they still love him because he's a part of that epic Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonnar fight. So we will see where things go from there. And then we go to the main card. We started things out with the debut of Sexyama Yoshihiro Akiyama versus Alan the Talent Belcher. This was a good fight. Definitely was deserving of fight of the night. I mean, it was impressive to see that Akiyama actually wanted to keep it standing in the first round, when you knew that he's a better judo practitioner, and, when they get in the clinch, that he's probably going to take Belcher down and, either mount him and just, control him on the ground. But that really didn't happen here. He liked to mix it up. It was actually a good back and forth first round. I would have to give the first round to Belcher, as he had more effective striking, and that was the first round where he started to work on the eye, which you saw at the end of the fight. Akiyama's eye was closed and looked real mean, actually. The second round, you gotta give to Akiyama. He took him down and, controlled for most of it. And, Belcher got up, but, Akiyama won that round, in my opinion. Third round, it was another Belcher round. I mean, Akiyama got a takedown again, but he didn't do anything. Belcher escaped. Belcher had more escapes. And then when they, went back to the striking, Belcher won that. To me, Belcher won this fight 29-28. The judges didn't see that score. Two judges scored it 29-28. One was for Belcher, the other was for Akiyama, but then this one judge with the 30-27, I don't see where you saw this. So I do not see how Akiyama won every round in this fight. I mean, yeah, like I said, you could maybe make a case for the first, because it was just such a back and forth fight in that first round that it's just too close to call. But there's no way he won the second, and there's no way he won the third, in my opinion. Then we went to the next fight. It was the first big fight that they had hyped up with, the Countdown show. And, of course, this is the Ultimate Fighter coaches clashing. It's Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. This was an incredible performance by Dan Henderson. This was his best performance, in my opinion, since joining the UFC. I mean, Bisping just kept circling into Henderson's hands. I mean, everyone thought, well, Bisping's probably the better striker. I said in my predictions I would have given the striking edge to Henderson, and he sure as hell proved it. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that he was motivated to beat someone up. as normally Dan Henderson's just a guy that likes to take a fight in stride, but he actually really looked like he wanted to beat up Bisping, and he sure as hell did. I mean, he devastated him in the first round, absolutely outstruck him, really had Bisping didn't look in the best of shape either. He looked gassed at the end of the first round. His corner, was yelling him, you gotta stop circling to his right hand, and that's exactly what happened in the second round. He circled right into the right hand, and Henderson just laid the boom on him. Bisping went down hard, and his back of the head smacked off the mat, and then Henderson just jumped on him with another shot, which, that one was probably a little uncalled for, and a lot of people are saying, oh man, where the hell was the referee? Well, you have to think, Bisping just fell. Mario Yamasaki is at, the farther end of the cage. He has to run there. I mean, at least, Henderson didn't do any more damage, but it was just one shot. So that was maybe a little uncalled for, but still, you could tell that this fight meant a lot to Henderson. Where do you go from here? I think with this performance, we should probably get the Anderson Silva-Dan Henderson rematch. A lot of people are already probably writing off Dan Henderson here and saying, oh, well, that's going to be it. He's 38. How is he going to beat the guy that already beat him? Well, the way I look at it is like, come on, that's Dan's first fight in the UFC since, what? The UFC 12 tournament win, I believe, against Carlos Newton. That's a whole different thing for him. He said his cut wasn't even that good to make the weight, or that was his second fight, excuse me. It wasn't a good cut at all, so I think this is going to be a better Dan Henderson. Now he's got a couple more wins under his belt. Rich Franklin was a big win. Now Bisping. Really, I think you got to give it to Henderson. Nate Marquardt and Damian Maia are probably in line as well, but I think Henderson deserves it. Then we went to the first title fight of the evening. It was the UFC Welterweight Championship. Thiago Alves versus George Rush St. Pierre. Really, this was George St. Pierre proving why he is probably the best fighter in the world. Absolutely dictating the pace. Basically doing whatever he wanted in there. When he wanted a takedown, he would get it. And there was nothing Thiago could do. There was a moment in the fifth round where he was getting the better of the striking, and there was a moment, I think, in the third when he got on top of George, which is actually where George tore his groin, that, he had some signs of life, but really it was nothing. It was nothing to win a round or anything like that. It was every round, in my opinion, George St. Pierre. I scored at 50-45. I mean, George kept taking him down. He kept, controlling, delivering elbows, doing what he had to do to win the fight. A lot of people are saying, well, this is just another boring, Anderson Silva performance. I would absolutely disagree. When you look at Anderson Silva's last performance at UFC 97, the man did not want to engage at all. At least St. Pierre wanted to engage. He even, would attempt to mix it up in the striking, and even that he pre-realized it was bad, so what's he going to do? Out-wrestle him? I mean, his wrestling is just so phenomenal. It's not even funny, I mean, look, Matt Hughes couldn't get the man down. Josh Koscheck couldn't get the man down. George St. Pierre got him down, which is absolutely something that's phenomenal. And I don't know where they go from here in the welterweight title scene, as, it's apparently the winner of Mike Swick, Martin Kampmann. But still, those guys, while, they're talented, I just still don't see them posing a threat. I mean, I think GSP is just going to take Swick down if it's Swick and beat him up for either 4 rounds or finish him. And, Kampmann probably poses a more interesting and exciting fight, in my opinion, but I still see that one going the exact same way. So George right now is just on fire. And a lot of people want to see the Anderson Silva fight. I don't think we're going to see that for a while, since, look, the UFC just did a super fight with George St. Pierre. Anderson Silva's about to have a super fight with Forrest Griffin. Really don't see them doing it for at least maybe 2010. But, we'll see. If none of these guys have any opponents left in their respective divisions, and if Anderson doesn't want to go up in a light heavyweight anymore, then you gotta throw it together. But still, the UFC's also afraid that, since George may not be the biggest guy to do it at middleweight, that, he'll lose and it'll hurt his credibility for his marketability, not only in Canada, but worldwide. He's actually a pretty strong draw, so that's just one of the reasons in it. And then, of course, we went to the main event of the evening. This was Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. And really, Brock just showed that this man has evolved so much since that first Mir fight. He took him down and just beat him up. I mean, he beat him up for the first round. Yeah, he was tentative. He definitely didn't want to make the same mistake. I mean, look, when he got a takedown and he saw Mir going for his legs, he would just scramble out of there and make sure to get on top and just controlled him. He controlled him against the cage, and Frank really couldn't get out of anywhere. The second round, much of the same, and just pounded his face, a lot, and Mir's face looked really, really bad. So that just shows the power of Brock, in little spaces. You have to mind you, in little spaces. Look at what the damage he did to Randy Couture, and look at the damage just now he did to Frank Mir. Brock right now is absolutely showing, why he may be the best thing to happen in the UFC. Not only, maybe his fight wasn't the most exciting thing, but what he did after was, to me, awesome. A lot of people on, the MMA message boards were like, man, this is the most disrespectful thing in the world. It's like, come on. Man, fucking this pro wrestler's now still UFC Heavyweight Champion. Well, you have to realize that, really, without pro wrestling, MMA wouldn't be where it is today. I mean, I'm probably going to make a video for this in a couple days explaining this more. But his promo he did, I thought was awesome. The thing he did with Mir, that was just raw emotion. I mean, come on. Sometimes these, after the fights, they had held this hype up and they, hug. It's just kind of fake. And, at least that was, just proved that Brock really did have animosity over that loss. He wanted to get that revenge, and he did. So that was, incredible there. I love what he said. I mean, everyone actually was enjoying his promo. The only thing I didn't like, and I think he even admitted it, Brock did at the press conference, was dissing of the UFC's biggest sponsor in Bud Light, which he said that he was going to drink a Coors Light after because Bud Light wouldn't sponsor him or pay him anything. That was something bad because Bud Light was upset with the UFC over Dana White's video blog on Loretta Hunt. So that's something that, wasn't good. But obviously, hopefully, they cleared the air on that. Like, look, that was a mistake. And, Brock at the press conference actually was drinking a Bud Light. So that's a nice positive there. But really, I mean, Brock is looking so strong. Looking like the best thing to happen. And you know what? The UFC, they have a guy who's going to sell pay-per-views just because of his appearance. He's this generation's top heel in MMA. MMA fans are going to order the show just to see if someone can beat him up, and then they're going to be the people that order the show just to watch him beat people up. So he's really going to be just so great for the UFC. Dana White's really doing backflips because they have someone like this who can sell fights and actually, do well in the fights and is actually talented enough to do it. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the Akiyama fight and Belcher went long, they cut the other main card fight of Paulo, Thiago, and John Fitch, which, to me was kind of surprising. Everyone was mostly still there. If you look out in the seats, they were still there. But this fight, it was actually not as bad. I've heard some people say this was not a good fight. I'd say it was not bad. I mean, Thiago won the first round. He was on top, and, Fitch couldn't really do anything. And then the second and third was Fitch, dictating the pace, trying to get us a choke. And he won the fight. Fitch looked impressive. People are saying, hey, maybe this could get him another shot against GSP. I don't think this one will be enough. I think he needs maybe 2 more wins or another win. At least a big performance. Like if he can get a knockout victory or something like that. A quick submission victory. Maybe. But I think they're going to lay it down with Mike Swick and Martin Kampman. But overall, really enjoy the show. Thumbs up. Leave your comments. Best fight, worst fight. To me, definitely best fight would have to be the Akiyama Belcher. Other than that, that's it for me. I am out. Peace.